Hi, welcome back, guys. So, in this chapter, we are going to talk about Python functions. So, very important chapter. In the last, we have seen the control structures, correct? So, now let's talk about the functions and the various things which are related to functions. Now, what exactly is function? See, function is basically a group of code or a set of lines in program which can perform a task. Basically, it could be a behavior. For example, we have so many behaviors. We say, right, eating is a behavior, sleeping is a behavior, right? Let's say my mother calls and says, no, switch on the fan. Now, switching on the fan is a behavior. Or she asks me to bring water. Now, bringing water is a behavior. Now, these behaviors, if you keenly observe, there are many things which you need to understand. Number one, if she asks me to switch on the fan, I don't need to reply or I didn't need to talk anything basically. I can just go there, switch on the fan, and leave. Now, this kind of behavior, which doesn't have any return in nature, we call these functions as void functions. They don't return anything basically. If in case if my mother asks me water, now there is a thing which I need to give, so I need to take water in a glass and then I need to give it to her. Or if she asks me what's time now, now I need to tell what's time now, so that means I need to return something. Okay, look at some more methods. In these two methods, she didn't give me anything. She just asked me a question and she made some behaviors of mine execute. But there might be some other methods where she may give me some inputs. For example, she gives me a bag and she gives me money and then asks me to go to market and buy some eggs. Now, this type of method we called as parametric methods. So let's understand the classification of these methods. One method, find, which does not return anything, we call this as void method. Another method which returns something is a returnable method. The third one is a parametric method. Or we can have a combination also. The good practices say, find, avoid void methods, try to have returnable methods as much as possible, because the good, I mean, somebody is asking something. Now we need to reply back, right? We need to respond. We need to convey the result. Now, when we don't convey the result, that looks little arrogance. So even the programming, I mean, good practices, they say better always give a reply. So have returnable methods, fine, in general. But having void method is not wrong, but it won't be a good programming practice. So primarily a method is going to contain some set of codes grouped together under a name. This is what primarily or precisely what we call it as a function. And in fact, Python has two ways by which you can write functions. One, you can write functions directly. That's why Python supports, we say, no, function oriented or structured oriented language. Another thing is you can also write a class, and within the class also you can write functions. So Python also supports object oriented programming. Got it, guys? Okay. Now let's see how we can write a function in Python. Very simple. Writing a Python function has to start with the keyword def. Definition. Stands for definition. Definition, and then you can specify the method name. So let's say I have a method name by name met, and immediately you need to write the parenthesis. So which says that I'm going to accept parameters inside this. But if I leave it empty, that means I'm not accepting. Whether you accept or don't accept, you have to have the parenthesis. That is must. And then immediately end of the method declaration colon. So this is going to be your method declaration. That's it, simple. Now within this you can have the next thing, that is the statements. If you don't have anything to write, you can say pass. And if you want to call this method, fine, you can straight away say met. Since my language supports the basic structured oriented programming also, This is more than sufficient. You don't need to really create an object and all. It works like this itself. So you can say met, this will call met. Right now I have put pass, that means I don't have any statement. Now if I want to execute, I can execute, nothing will get printed. Now if I want something to get printed, within that I can say print file welcome to functions in Python. The functions are also called as methods. We can also term them as methods. So here, that's it. So you can call a function like this. Okay. Now we are going to explore many things on this function. Can I have multiple lines in this function? Yes, you can have as many lines of program as possible. And every line has to have an indentation, which means like it belongs to this function. So I can very well say here print one more, find one more line, one more time, welcome, something I'm saying. So as many lines as possible you can give. So all these lines will belong to this function called met. And this is a void function because I'm not returning anything. If I return something, this becomes a returnable function. Now how do you write a returnable function? That is also quite simple. Again, just I have to do the same thing. Fine. And here you can have as many statements as possible. Apart from those statements, you need to have finally one keyword called as return. Return, let's say, fine, welcome here. So it doesn't mean that you should have only one return statement. Please understand. You can have multiple statements. And now, if you want to call that method, fine, here you can say like this. And then, so I'm printing, but you can understand it is returning something. Okay, please understand, you can return only one thing from a method. You cannot have two return statements except both the things to be returned. Like for example, if you say return one more time, if I'm going to have like this, let's see what happens. Fine. After welcome, this has been discarded, correct or not? After welcome, this has been discarded, we don't have anything. It does not work actually. So this is, until this it works. This is being discarded. Number line number 8 is discard. Getting this, guys? So we have here two functions, void and returnable function. In returnable function, compulsory return should be there, and you can have only one return. Statement can come multiple times. For example, you can also have like this. See, for example, if some value, let's say I have x equal to 10. If x is equal to 10, you can say return fine welcome, else you can have a return fine welcome. So like this you can have two return statements, either of this will be called. See, if you say well, sorry, colon missing. So welcome will come, else also colon is missing. So welcome will come. In case if I'm going to have some other value, welcome will come. There is also okay. But only one return statement will work. Two return statement will not work at the same time. Got it, guys? Is that clear? So this is with respect to your void and returnable statement. Fine, guys. Is that clear? Okay. Apart from this, a function can also have parameters. So how do you write a function with parameters? So we can say def, let's say met3. Here you can say x in. Now x and n is going to contain or either accept some arguments. So here if I want, I can specify that. Let's say print x comma n. If I say so, then I can very well supply those arguments. How do I supply? I can say met3, I can say Danish. Fine. So I really don't need to specify what data type it belongs to, because Python may, never we specified the data type. Automatically it picks up the right data type, runtime. It does, we know in Python it works like that. So here you can say, cool. Remember the words which I'm using. This is called as parameters, and what you supply is called as arguments. This is called as parameters, or what you supply is arguments. When you supply arguments, fine, this parametric method, fine, will accept that arguments. Cool. So if you want, you can process it whatever you want. You can have a return statement, you can have a combination of return as well as no void. You can also say like this: return, fine, welcome, very well, fine. I'm saying return welcome like this, apart from printing. So if I want, I can also have ex equal to like this. Am I right? So I'm passing something, I'm getting something, I'm also printing something. Got it? So please understand this. This is just a demonstration of the basic things of a function. Okay, cool. So the next thing I would like to show you in function is two things. When you declare a variable inside a function, like for example, here I have one x declared outside. Now, whenever you declare a variable outside a function, we call that variable as global function. When you declare a variable inside a function, we call it as local variable, and not global function, global variable. So there are two types of variables in a program. One is global variable, one is local variable. One which is declared inside a function, we call that as local variable. One which is declared outside a function is called as global variable. And remember, the life scope of the local variable is only within the method, within the function. Whereas the life scope of the global variable is across the functions, across the methods. So, shall we prove that? Let's say I have a variable here. I have a variable here. I have a method. I can access that particular variable. Let's say I have one more variable here, y equal to 10. Now this is accessible again here, right? I have one more method, if met2. Here also I can access x because it's global. We can access it from another function also. How about having the same y variable, fine, printed here? Now, the moment you do so, it throws you an error. Y is not available. That's what it is saying. Because y scope starts here, ends here. It is not available outside the function. Whereas x is a global variable available across the functions. The scope of this variable is local. The scope of this variable is global. Now this you can see here. It is throwing an error. Y is unresolved. So you cannot have this, but x you can have. Now I can very well call met2. It will print x in both the locations and y only in met. This is this two, and this one is this. Getting this, guys? So please understand. And whatever variable you supply here is also local, is also local. I mean, you are assigning it, fine. The scope of that is only within the function. Is that clear? Fine. Make sure you remember this. Okay. One more thing, whenever you declare a function, you can also declare like this: x equal to 10, y equal to 8, which means you are initializing the values during the declaration itself. They become the default values. So if in case if you don't supply a value as a parameter argument, then automatically this will be taken. This will be initialized, and with that the method will be called. For instance, let's say I have a x here, I have a y, I'm accepting a y here. Fine, I don't need to declare here. I can print that y. Now this y has to be supplied, has to be given here. Let's say like this. Only then it will work. See? it works. If you don't give this value, then what happens? This will not work. Okay. But in case if I say y equal to 1000 here, which means I have already a y, even if you don't supply, I will take this. If you supply, I'll replace it. So I'm creating default parameters in this way. See, it works. But in case if I pass a different value, 900 for example, then that will be 1000 will be overridden by this 900. Got it? Is that making sense? Fine. So it means I can pass a function without any argument also, provided I give like this. But in case if I pass, then that value will get replaced. So this is pre-initializing default parameters or values for the parameters, default values for parameters. That's what it is. Is that making sense? Okay. Now let's look at one more thing. We also have one more thing called as variable arguments. We call this as var args. We call this as var args. Now this particular no I mean now available even in Java. This was not there in JDK 5. When they released, they introduced var args. What is var args, sir? Let's define this. Every time I'm deleting and creating a new program to make it simple for you, so that you can uh, see this alone as a program, so that confusion won't be there. So let's say I have def met. Fine. I have a function here. Now normally if I want to accept, let's say, three parameters, I need to say like this. I need to say like this. Only then I can accept three parameters. If I want to accept four parameters, I need to say like this. Only then I can accept four parameters. Correct or not? Print x comma y comma z comma n. So here, if I pass like this, then it works. But there is also a shortcut. What I can do is, instead of this, I can say def met2 of star n. Star n, which means I can actually supply n number of arguments. N number of arguments. Any number of arguments you can supply. That's what star represents. So here I can say, since any number of arguments can come for I in n, I'm printing I like this. And here let me say met of find 1 comma. I can supply any number of arguments. A very important one aspect is. So if you cannot do like this. In case if I'm going to have one more argument supplied here, it will throw an error. But in this case, you can one argument or multiple arguments. It does not make any difference. Neither it creates any problem. Okay. See, if I give met is this method. So immediately it's saying only four arguments are possible. Fine, but six were given. So what you should do? Find met two. If I go for met two, this problem will be solved. Fine. Is that making sense? Is that making? Okay. So I can very well pass any number of arguments provided I use this var args. This is also called as var args. Is that clear now? Next. You also have one more very important thing called as lambdas. Now this lambda is also called as anonymous functions. Now why do we go for this? In a simple sense, right now understand this is a very good way to achieve encapsulation. There are two things in no I mean functions. One is called as inner functions, one more is called as lambdas. Now both these things are ways to achieve encapsulation. Right now understand that much. Later when we go deeper into object oriented programming, we will get to know or understand how we achieve encapsulation. So right now let's understand the syntax of this lambdas. So primary lambdas are going to be a statement, a function looking like an expression, looking like a statement. Single line, single line. It cannot be multiple lines. It has to be a single line statement. And you don't need to actually declare a function. You can define only the logic and can be assigned to a name, and that can be used. So the see, in fact, this particular concept of lambda was introduced in Java also. This is a very famous concept, and every programming language nowadays uses this lambdas. Now in Java also we have lambdas. This was introduced in version 8 of Java in 2014, and it's very famous in Java also. In almost every language we have this. Okay, let's see how we can define a uh, lambda. Let's say I have a variable hello, and I can say hello equal to lambda, and then colon, and then I can have a program. I can have a program. I can say some fine. That's it. My first lambda is defined. So lambda is a keyword here. Now, if I want to call this like a function, I can call. I can say hello. Now this will call as a function. See this? Can I have multiple lines here? Means you cannot have multiple lines. For example, I have one more print fine. Hi. Now this will not work. This will throw you an error. It is already throwing an error. Can I have a comma and give? No, that also it won't accept. It will start throwing an error. See, that means right now it didn't showed any error, but when you run this, it will throw an error. So actually, it does not work for multiple lines. It should be a single line. It should be a single line, a statement, an expression primarily. See here, an expression. So it cannot, it does not accept multiple this thing. It should be a single expression. Okay. Apart from this, if you want, you can have one more option. You can write this statement in the next line by doing like this. If you press enter, it will automatically add in PyCharm this slash, backward slash, which means you can have it in the second line, but again you cannot have more than one line. This will run, but if I'm going to have one more line, this will throw an error. So you don't accept more than one line. Okay, you don't accept more than one line. So that's how it works. So it should be a statement and a single line expression. Okay? Lambda has to be a single line expression. In fact, I would have written it expressions only. We are limited to one line. Getting that? If you want to go with the second line, you can go like this. Okay, fine. Apart from this, lambdas can also accept parameters. Like for example, you can see here parameters are accepted. So hello 2 equal to lambda. How do you accept parameters? Name, age, for example, and then I'm saying colon, and then see this. I'll do that. In this case, what I can do, I can say hello to when I'm saying Danish 25. So here I can say like this also. Superb, right? So I can accept lambdas with parameters. I can also accept lambdas without parameters. One parameter or many parameters. It's up to us. Okay, let's try whether we can accept the arguments, default values, and also where args, those things in lambda. Let's say I have this as fine. I'm saying name equal to Danish. Let's say age equal to 20. Fine. I'm saying like this. So it's working, but let me pass without anything. See, that also it's taken. Okay. How about accepting argument, n number of arguments? Let's say hello 3 equal to lambda. Fine. star n whole. Okay, and for I in n accept, let's say print n. When I'm saying hello 3, okay, here I can say 1 2 3 4, something like this. Let's run this. It's coming, but the question is, I'm sorry, you cannot have, this is not possible. Okay, it's accepting multiple argument, but lambdas can only accept fine a single statement. For means you will have a multiple statement stuff, so you'll have issues. But it accepts if condition. So for you can have if conditions. Let's say n colon if n, and see here I have written that it returns, right? I mean, so try this out, guys. So many options are there. Fine. So you can create a lambda like this, and you can consider that also as a function. Got it? Is that clear? Fine. Okay. One more thing. Let me also define that. Apart from having lambdas, fine. Apart from all these things, we also have one more concept called as inner functions. So let's also see how inner functions are created. Inner function is a function within a function. Then again, how do you do? Why do you go for that? Again, as I said, it's for better encapsulation. You can have better encapsulation using inner functions. How do you do that? When you can say def outer. So this is one. And in case if you want to have a inner function, this should be declared within the function. As of now, understand this much. This we are doing in order to achieve, again, as I said, better encapsulation. But again, there are rules pertaining to it. Fine, we'll come to that rules. But as such, if you want to call this, let's say a print, fine, inner. If I want to call this function, then where should I call? Within the scope of the outer. Here I can call. And outer function can be called from outside, correct or not? Outer. So what this outer, I mean, let's say print outer. Okay. Now if you do so, inner will outer will be called, outer will call inner. Now this is what we called as inner functions. A function within a function is what we called as inner functions. Getting that, guys? So let me stop with this in this video. And the next video we are going to talk about variable scoping. How scoping works. That means, like, if I declare a variable inside a function or outside a function, inside a outer function or inside a inner function, where the lifespan is. So let's talk about that in the next video. Fine. Thank you.